In this video, we've got potential tropical cyclone making landfall this morning in Florida with flooding rains and isolated tornadoes. Plus, I'm watching the Caribbean for our next potential tropical system. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday out there. We've been watching this system for a while now, and a lot of the convection has been well away from the center. The National Hurricane Center has been sampling this storm for the last 2 days, and they have yet to find kind of a closed low. So that's why they have not upgraded this, officially to Tropical Storm Alex. But either way, this has produced very heavy rainfall over central and southern Florida here. And you can see this new convection trying to blow up where this center is trying to come ashore this morning right around the Fort Myers area. And it's going to be producing some very heavy rain over the next several hours. So here's the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. It has sped up, so that should lower at least the flood threat somewhat. But now it's moving northeast at 18 miles an hour. It still has 40-mile-per-hour winds, but yet a closed low with this system. And as it moves across Florida this afternoon, heading into Sunday morning, I do feel it's going to get its act together and could, become officially then Tropical Storm Alex, where it's expected to max out around 50 miles an hour, but it will continue pushing off into the northeast and lifting, just north of the island of Bermuda. And a lot of the convection here has been well to the south and the east side. So they could be impacted with some pretty heavy rains for them as well as you get into your Monday. So, but yeah, for today, we're still looking at some added totals. I mean, we've seen anywhere from 7 to 10 inches in isolated spots down here near Miami. I think the bullseye is right about 11 inches so far, and we're going to be adding to those totals, and we could be even possibly looking at another 3 to 6 inches over the next 5 to 8 hours as it moves across Florida this morning. So yes, extreme flooding is going to be still a huge concern. And then you can't roll out some isolated spin-ups tornadoes within this particular setup, but this will safely move offshore as you get into the evening time frame. And especially in tomorrow, you can finally say goodbye to what's left of what would be Alex by then, as it's out into the open waters and heads off into the northeast. So here's the overall setup for this afternoon as far as the U.S. goes on the overall storms that's happening. We still have that northwest flow. It's still prevalent. That's still pretty common in the month of June. And that's exactly what we're going to be seeing this afternoon. Storms going to be blowing up just east of the Rockies here. And we could be looking at a slight risk for storms in portions of Kansas here, getting into portions of the Texas Panhandle, and those are going to be diving southward, weakening as they get into the evening time frame. And we saw a lot of heavy rain yesterday in Fort Worth area. Man, they had this little mesoscale convective vortex system. It almost looked like a little mini hurricane that dumped copious amounts of rain. Some spots picked up 6 inches of rain just near the Fort Worth, Texas area. And we could be looking at another system going to be diving southward as these hold together during the overnight hours. And so you got severe storms this afternoon, and that mesoscale convective system will continue to propagate off the northwest flow, these northwest winds aloft. And then yet you could have a potential another system moving through West Texas, headed into portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area into the overnight hours. So here's the national picture. So here's the setup. You got this little surface low, right? You got this buckle and the warm front that's trailing off the northwest flow setup, dragging down those thunderstorms in and around where you got the severe threat, tailing off, weakening as they approach, bringing that heavier rain further south. You've got this relentless trough that's going to be impacting the Pacific Northwest with more of a zonal flow going to be really starting to take shape, especially starting next week. Then, of course, you got all the impacts down here in Florida with potential tropical cyclone out here, which will eventually become Alex. So, but as we go into Sunday, here's the setup again. As the jet stream lifts north, we've got the ridge of high pressure going to be building in from the west, diving into the southwest, building back into Texas. that pretty much eliminates the northwest flow and pushes the jet stream a little bit further north. So you have that convective complex over Kansas as well as Nebraska into your Sunday time frame. And then of course the overall national setup still has the these troughs, these relentless troughs are going to be coming in off the Pacific jet stream that's lifting well to the north. So over, every single day, this jet stream is going to be lifting a little bit further north as we get into your early next week. But here's the setup as you get into your Sunday time frame. And then, of course, we transition into Monday. Again, that jet stream just lifts a little bit further north, puts the storms a little bit further north. Now it's pretty much over portions of Colorado, getting into Kansas here, and you have no northwest flow. That's pretty much shut down. Complements of this ridge is going to be building in underneath, and then you just kind of have sporadic shower activity into portions of the Ohio Valley, as well as down here into the southeast and back into Florida again. And again, the national setup would again lift that jet stream a little bit further north, pulling all the activity further north as you go, as we finally could say goodbye, which will be Tropical Storm Alex by then. And then by the time we get into Tuesday, it's going to be well out to sea, and it's going to be dissipating out in the open waters of the Atlantic. But yeah, we take a look at the overall Pacific, and you can see what I'm talking about with this zonal flow. So this is a picture of what the Pacific out here looks like, as there's just basically these winds just come across and they just be relentless, and that's pulling in cooler conditions as well. So not only are you going to have unsettled weather, that's where all the, say, below average temperature anomalies are going to be taking place. And once this reaches the US, kind of the same deal. The jet stream, by the time we get into Wednesday, jet stream lifts even further north. So you have that zonal flow really taking shape that almost eliminates the severe threat by then, building the ridge underneath, and all the instability and the cooler conditions, or at least below average conditions, will be further to the north up here and impacting over portions of the north end of the Ohio Valley. And you can actually see that on the temperature anomalies as the ridge will be building over the, underneath. You've got, this is the 7-day temperature anomaly between now and the next, through Saturday time frame. As this zonal flow really starts to take shape, you've got below average temperatures in the Pacific Northwest will really come across. It buckles a little bit, so that's why it brings down even cooler conditions and pulls it a little bit further south into the Ohio Valley, getting into portions of Kentucky, reaching the mid-Atlantic states as well as the Northeast, as the Southeast, the Southern Plains, and much of the West and the Southwest will be dominating by a ridge of high pressure. And that is going to be helping the tropics trying to come alive. So let's take a look at the MJO. This is the Mann-Julie oscillation. And, potential Alex was actually able to form into kind of a minimal system in phase 7 or phase 8. But once we're getting into the more, positive phases of the MJO, or a little bit more active phases for tropical storm development. And you can see the time frame. This is the Australian guidance, and I really like this this model here, as it really kind of gives you a true depiction of really what's happening. By the time we get into, say, June 7th, this actually goes into phase 8, but your little bit more favorable phases for tropical storm development are your phase 1, 2, and 3. So you can definitely see by the time we get into the middle of the month to the end of the month and heading into the first part of July, we're going into a little bit more active phase for tropical storm development. So that's why we have to take a look at what may be to come out here into the Caribbean. So if you look at some of the ensemble guidance, say between now and the 13th, 14th time frame, right? Things kind of, they're settling down after Alex moves through. So for the next 7 to 10 days, I'm not seeing any, say, active, tropical storm development, but things are brewing, right? Things are trying to really kind of get its act together of all the kind of pieces of the puzzle, try to come together. So we could be looking at some like Central America gyra type, conglomerate of thunderstorms down here into Central America and parts of the Yucatan, where actually, what will be Alex tried to form down here. But once we get past that, right? Once we get past the 13th of the month, we've got a lot more ensemble members and we've got a lot more guidance as that MJO will go into a little bit more favorable phases. You got phase 1 by then, heading into possibly phase 2. So that is definitely a lot more favorable phase. And then we see more ensemble members trying to pull something out of the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico by the middle of the month. So this is just something we're kind of watching more long term of what may be to come as far as our next system that may be coming. What's trailing could be Alex. So let's take a look at the overall steering current. So as we get into the middle of the month, then yes, we got, upward rising motion air. We've got a little bit more conducive as far as the steering winds, and this would actually steer it into the Caribbean and actually coming out of the Yucatan, and they would pull the steering currents into the Gulf of Mexico. So there's a lot of the guidance trying to, come together and say, hey, this is something just to kind of watch more longer term as we get into the middle of the month time frame, or what potentially could be our next tropical system trying to come out of the Caribbean and potentially heading into the Gulf of Mexico by then. Because if you look at the Japanese model, right, this is the JMA. This actually comes out every Thursday, and all this blue areas here, that is your upward rising motion air. You got to have some sort of lift up in the atmosphere to create thunderstorms, right? And it all kind of congeals and kind of comes together into the Caribbean. So you've got a lot of lift from June 1st, day 3 through 9. That puts you through June 10th time frame. You've got a lot of lift up out here in the Caribbean. So it's going to be over time, but you're going to be producing tropical rains out here into the Caribbean. And once we get towards the middle of the month, you still got a lot more favorable phase with the MJO and a lot of upward rising motion air coming out of the Caribbean, which could potentially steer with the steering currents, pull whatever might be coming to fruition into the Gulf of Mexico by then. Because if you take a look at around, say, June the 12th timeframe of our precipitable water index here, you got a lot of deepening reds, you got a lot of deepening purples going to be impacting the island of Jamaica, going to be impacting the Cayman Islands. I'm going to be to a lot more, tropical updates, going forward, because we're getting into, tropical, activity now from June 1st all the way through the end of November. And so we're going to be doing a lot of updates on this channel for, tropical activity, down here in the Caribbean. So, hey, if you hadn't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all the daily updates on this channel, because I'll be really kind of fine-tuning things as they go forward, heading into Jamaica, get the Cayman Islands, the Yucatan. So I'm going to cover the entire area of the Caribbean before this would actually even possibly reach even close to the United States. So it gives you plenty of fair warning and forewarned of keep you well ahead of the storm, because by the time we get into the middle of the month, we still got that active system, this active pool of deep tropical moisture going to be impacting Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, with relentless rains over several days, piling up the rain, increasing the possibilities of landslides and mudslides out there. So that's always a huge concern for a lot of the islands. We got a lot of people traveling, going on cruises over the summer. So this is something that you definitely need to pay attention to as we get towards the middle of the month, as something's trying to sneak out of the Caribbean. Because as you pull past the middle of the month, we've got a lot of that deep tropical moisture with the steering winds trying to pull some of that moisture away from the ridge, because the ridge is probably going to be dominating much of Texas and much of the Southwest. So we would pull a lot of the kind of the deep tropical moisture into the Caribbean and lift it further north into the Gulf of Mexico. And here's the overall sea surface temperatures well out here in the Atlantic and the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. All you really need is about 78 degrees. So these waters are already plenty of warm to take on some whatever may be coming out of the Caribbean. So 82 degrees right along the coast here, well out here in the Caribbean, and these deepening reds out here by Jamaica into the Cayman Islands, heading over Cuba. Then of course you got the loop current out here into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, these waters are even higher than the 82-degree mark. So it's not going to take much. You've got a lot of deep tropical moisture down here, but the steering current's going to be lifting further north. You've got a lot of the pieces of the puzzle with the JMA, the upward rising motion air, some of the ensemble member guidance. So this is definitely something to watch as we get towards the middle of the month. And we got also climatology on our side too, of saying, hey, this is the area to watch coming out of the Caribbean, heading into the Gulf of Mexico. If something were to form, just like what will be potential tropical storm Alex has formed right in this favored zone for June, our next system would also be favored to possibly try to form in the Gulf of Mexico or somewhere possibly along the southeast coast, because that's climatology on your side. And then as we get into July, you have a lot more in close development. You have a lot less activity out here in the main development region, but stuff tries to get its act together a little bit closer to land, especially earlier on in the season. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.